Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Level Up. I'm your host, Everton, and we have an amazing show in store for you tonight. Some amazing guests with me. To my left, I have my good friend, Dwayne. Dwayne, you want to introduce yourself, sir, to the audience?
Yes, good evening. My name is Dwayne Simon, and it's my honor to be here with Everton Samuels to contribute to this wonderful podcast.
And to my right, first-time guest, Mr. Robert. Sir, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, my name is Robert Samuels. I'm not sure if I'm a relative of Everton Samuels,
think we
but
are.
that's something we're trying to figure out, and it's a real pleasure to be here on the show tonight.
And return guest, another Robert as well.
Yes, and thank you. My name is Robert Nichols, and my second time on your show, and the first time was a blessing. And again, I'm really appreciative of the opportunity. Thank you for the invite.
Absolutely. Tonight, we're going to continue from where we left off, fellas. Last week's show, we were talking about fatherhood, and especially when it relates to our community and what it looks like. There is a narrative that there seems to be a lack of father presence in the home when it comes to the black community. And we'll talk about what that looks like and the impact that have on our youth. And before we do that, Rob, your book I read, and Rob is also an author. He wrote this book called "There Is Healing in the Water," and I read your book. And when I read it, something jumped out at me. I wanted to look at briefly. It says here in Luke 19 that after Jesus went, he sent out two men to go and fetch a donkey that was tied up. And he said to tell them, the owner of the donkey, that if they ask you why you untying the donkey, he said, tell them that I am in need of this donkey.
That's right.
When I read that, fellas, that thing hit me like a brick. This donkey has been tied up for years, tied up for some time. And here is the master sending and telling to let the owner know that I am in need of that donkey. I'm in use of it. How often, I would say that we have gifts, potentials, and they're tied up inside of us, need to be loose.
I would say it happens quite frequently, and I would wonder, what is it that has it tied up? What is it about us or the individual that has those God-given gifts that God needs and requires of us, that he put in us in the first place? Yeah. What is it that is holding us back? What is it that ties us up? Is it unforgiven sin? Is it unconfessed sin? Pride? Low self-esteem or insecurities? Just lack of confidence? What is it? What is it that prevents us from stepping into those talents, those gifts, that purpose that God has put into us?
What do you say about that, Rob?
I would agree with that. I think that you've all heard the phrase, there's a sleeping giant in all of us.
Yeah.
And I believe that all of us have a sleeping giant inside of us. And we all have things that need to be released. We all have gifts and talents that we haven't used yet. I'll tell a quick story. Many years ago when I was working, one of my supervisors pulled me aside and looked me in the eye and said, "You can do more." And I never forgot that, because that was the first time someone ever said that to me.
Wow.
And now I use that phrase a lot to guys who are close to me. I look a lot of guys in the eye now and say, "You can do better, you can do more. You've got great potential." So I believe that we need people in our lives to help us release that giant. Many of us don't have people around us who are releasing us. They may be pushing us in the other direction.
Yeah.
They're telling us what we're not and what we can't do, but they're not telling us what we can do, what we're capable of. So
That's good.
I think that's one way of releasing the giants that are inside of us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. I'd also say, to add to that, that sometimes we have limiting. We have fear. We're fear-driven.
Yeah.
And we've been told, sometimes by even our own parents,
Yeah.
that you can only do so much. You'll never be this, you can only do that. And I think that can limit your growth. And sometimes we have endless potential in the way God built us. We haven't even tapped into our potential yet. I think we're, it's like a motor vehicle. The top speed might be, 240 or 250, but we're still pushing 80, right? So I think we could do a lot better, but we're afraid to step on the gas.
Rob, I want to piggyback on what you said. Someone came to you and told you that there's more. And this happened in your adult stage of your life.
Yes.
Can you imagine, as you said, that untapped power that's hidden, if someone came to you in an earlier stage in your life and tell you that?
My life would have been different. My life would have been very, very different. And I'm thinking about a friend of mine who told me a story many years ago that when he was growing up, that his own mother would tell him that he's not going to amount to much. And so when we are in our formative years, when we were young people, the voices around us sometimes are the ones that crush our spirit. And it's so important for people listening that, our young people need to hear. They need to be told that they've got great potential, and they need to be told that they're capable. They need a lot of positive affirmations because there's a lot of negative coming in. Yeah. And for some reason, we tend to grab onto the negative much faster than we do the positive, right?
We do. Life, society is like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I just want to encourage people that, for young people especially, let's put some positive, let's pour into them and see their potential. I mean, sometimes too, parents may see the negative and they don't see the positive. Let's accentuate the positive things. And I think that will be very, very important, especially when you're young. You need to hear that because you don't want to wait till you're an adult to hear that. It's not too late, but it would have made such a difference if you heard that when you were younger.
And I think that, and you guys can jump into as well, I think in our household, that's how I grew up hearing those negative thoughts, right? We don't hear that, hey, you can do all things through Christ, or you have the ability to do whatever you want to do. It's always a negative, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. And that story that we read earlier in Luke, one of the things that jumped out to me was when he says, tell them that I am in need of the donkey. Go ahead.
And to jump in to add to that, not only did he say, tell them I am in need of the donkey, but it was in response to something. Because when they went to retrieve the donkey, the crowd around was saying, why are you doing that? Why are you taking the donkey?
Yeah.
Right? So Jesus was giving the reply to, I need it.
I'm in need of it.
I'm in need of it. Right? All the individuals, everything you said was so rich because exactly, you need somebody to say, you can do more, especially when everybody around you is saying no, or the opposite.
The noise, the crowd.
The noise, the crowd.
And the thing about it, he says, I'm in need, meaning that he gave us all something, Rob, Dwayne. All of us was given something to make something else better. So when he gave you the ability to write this book, it was so a next person like myself could read this book one day and receive something from this book that would change my life.
Amen.
So everything that God has given into us, it's never for us only. It's always to make someone's life better or to enrich something else, right? So he's saying that in a time like this where I think that we're in a very crucial time where, speaking of fatherhood, I don't think it's more crucial than now that fathers are more vocal because our youth, when you look around and see what's going on in our community. But when you grow up in a home where it wasn't the popular thing for fathers to be around, and it's mostly single moms that are raising boys. So now how do we tackle that conversation that, okay, I'm in need of that. So we're in need of fathers now to be more vocal, to be more present. What's your take on that?
I agree 100% that fathers need to be more vocal. And touching back on, only focusing on the negative, or how do we raise kids where we can establish boundaries and discipline,
Yeah.
but have it communicated in a way that still allows a child to feel empowered, and you said this earlier during the pre-show, still give them the room to make those mistakes, right? So how do we do that as parents? How do we do that as fathers, right? Now we're going to be present. We're here. We're going to take care of our kids. We want to love them. We want to keep them safe. But how do we communicate those boundaries appropriately and with love, with God love, to give them that encouragement to make mistakes and to be successful?
The thought that comes to my mind is what you said earlier. Many of us weren't raised in environments where there was a model for us to follow. So I think a lot of us are wrestling with what it means to be a father. Even if we are present, what do we do while we're present? Where do we jump in? Where do we pull back? So I think those are things we're still wrestling with. And it's just important to just acknowledge the fact that it's not easy to be a father.
No.
You know, when I became a parent, I started reading books. I started re-examining how I was raised, because there's some things that needed to go. There's some things that weren't going to work. And so I think it's, you know, what you're doing here is so important that we're learning from each other too. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about mentorship later. What I did was I looked around at the men that were around me, and I was kind of eavesdropping and watching how they were parenting. And so I was fortunate that I had some good models, role models around me. My grandparents, for example, were great role models. They had 9 kids, and they raised them all together. And so that was my first role model. And so I believe, even though we're not raised with maybe good models, we can look around and see that there are other men who are good models. I know my friend Dwayne, he's probably, you know, eavesdropped on me a little bit in terms of what I'm doing, and I've eavesdropped on other men to see what they're doing. And so we share the wealth, so to speak. Because I think I still think we need a community to raise children. I don't think we can do it on our own. We still need other men who are present. Other men who are present to jump in as well, especially if they see, you know, we're maybe dropping the ball a little bit. And so I think we should rely on each other as well as a community to be a part of that process.
You know, what I would say is that there's a lot of great fathers out there. But I think the problem that we're having today, I mean, I've got kids, and I find it sometimes difficult. I try to be a good example for my kids, to mentor, to be a good father, to nourish, to encourage them. But I think the society that we're living in today, and when we were growing up, and I think you touched upon on your last podcast, that we grew up where the rules were a lot stricter. Our parents had more control, and we were more disciplined. Today, the kids, that's been stripped away from many fathers. The system has stripped away a lot of our ability to be good fathers, you know, in various ways, even in divorce. I've divorced once, and the system literally destroyed my relationship with my son. The family courts literally destroyed it. They put a big wedge in there. So that can have a major impact on how we father our children and what we can do. So I think it's twofold. Today, I think it's a lot more difficult. There are a lot of good men that have given up, and it's unfortunate because I feel that the way these young men are going these days, they need fathership more than anything else. They need good fathers, good people, mentors in their lives.
I would add to that that whether it's being a man, being a young man, being a father or husband, we talked about this on the first time I came, there's no playbook. And that's the reason why I feel personally that the Bible is so important, because it has elements in it that show a young man how to respect his parents, for example, or you know, how to conduct himself in the community, or to love others around him. As a man, it will teach you, how the parameters of being disciplined, and temperance and self-control and patience. And in marriage, it'll tell you roles and responsibilities of how a man should be treating his wife, for example. We've, as a society, have gone away from the Bible, which truly was the only source of material that we had to train young men, because your father and our grandparents couldn't do it because they were living out their own trauma and trying to raise us the best way they could. You know what I mean? So we were just carbon copies of them trying to break their generational chains, right? The Bible was the only thing this whole time that has stayed consistent with how to behave as a man. Everything else has been changing, right?
And I think that's where, even at church, I'm looking back when I was younger, when I got saved and I was in the church, I used to see a lot of older men around me. And they weren't my father per se, but as you said, they were models of what men look like, strong men. And I think to your point, the system have breaking that down, where I think as a men, we have so much stuff that's going on that we're fighting against. And it's a system, or it's the family dynamics is changing. And you're trying to be a man over here according to what society says men should look like. And that definition has changed from when I know I was younger looking at it today. Right? My dad, he was my father, but as a man, when I got married, looking back and having kids, I love my dad, but he was limited to the impact that he could have passed down onto me, because whatever I'm learning now, I'm learning through failure, and you learn from it, and then you improve on that. But I never had a father who sat me down and said, son, one day we'll get married, or this is gonna, like my son, he's 16 years old, and I said to you guys earlier off air, 16 years old, went his first date yesterday. As a father, that to me was a very proud moment, because I was never taught that, but I wanted him to experience responsibility and understand what that looks like, right? So when we get back, we could have a conversation as father-son relationship. My dad and I never had a relationship. He was my father, but we didn't have a relationship. And I think this is where the missing link is, that we're not having relationship between father and son.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
When your son went out, and you did explain how his date went, and
Correct.
it was really inspiring to hear the report. Where did your son learn that? You know, they say, the Bible says, teach them in the way, and then when they return, they'll return to it.
Yeah.
Was it a conversation with your son, how to treat the lady, or how to have this? Where did he get that idea in his head that, no, Dad, this isn't the lady for me because she's not God-fearing? Where did he get that in his head? Because that is then a testament to parenting.
I would say that's from just modeling, from him seeing how we live our life and what we do, right? When we were younger, I'm sure you guys can say this, every Sunday I had to be in church. I had no choice. Today, the kids have choices. And I think that's where they break, because we had to be in Sunday school every Sunday. I couldn't say I'm not going to Sunday school. And to your point, and to what we were saying earlier, I think this is where we're seeing the church where we have taken God out of the family. And our kids can sleep in on a Sunday morning and say, I'm not going to church anymore. So then if we do that, then what principle are they learning?
Right.
So I would say my son learned that from seeing how we live our life.
That ties right into your mentorship.
I've got a question for you, Everton. How do you insulate your children from the outside influences? Because as a father, you can only do so much.
Correct.
Right? You can model, you can try to lead. But as we know today, there's so many distractions that these children have that are influencing them, whether it's social media, friends, and that really takes a bite out of what we're trying to accomplish. And I give you props for raising your son in this environment at 16, that he's able to have that mindset and discipline to follow you.
Yeah, me too.
Because not a lot of kids at 16, they're going the opposite direction. So I give you,
You said something too, Everton, how, growing up that there was a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things, even to Dwayne's point, that makes it really hard
Yeah.
right now as a parent is that room for trial and error isn't there as much. Like,
No.
if we made a mistake, we could bounce back. The consequences and the threats out there in today's society, that
Life-changing.
if the kid does make a mistake, it could be very life-changing.
Career-changing, everything.
It's a lot more
Yeah.
dangerous, it feels.
Especially for black youth. It's not where you make a mistake out there nowadays, and that could affect your future, right? Back in the day, we get in trouble. I get in trouble growing up, but it was nothing that would affect my future. Now these kids are like, the line is so thin.
Right.
In school, right? If they make a mistake in school, they could be seen as something that they're not. And all of a sudden that they're cast in a different category that they don't belong into. So they don't have the room to make mistakes. And that to me is pressure.
Right.
Unjust pressure.
We talk about this at home all the time. Like,
Yeah.
when we were kids, if somebody wanted to spread a rumor about you,
Yeah.
it was, you just didn't have to believe it. Well, you know what I mean? And it would be forgotten in a month.
Correct.
This day and age with social media and a picture stays online forever, bullying and all those kind of things are just tenfold to what they used to be. It's so much harder to get past problems now.
But back to even what Dwayne's question was, and Rob could jump in this, and then we'll go into the mentorship portion of it. That's a very, it's a tough question to answer because there's no right or wrong answer to that question, Dwayne. When you guys says that I raised a good son, I have times when we literally get into fight because I'm like, he's trying to go in one direction, I'm trying to get him to a different direction, and we're colliding. And it took me as the father one day to say, this is not working because I'm very competitive. And he's my son. He's also very competitive. And I'm saying that I'm the father, you're the child, so you should listen. He's saying, no. In today's day, you listen as well. It's a two-way conversation. And I'm like, I wasn't raised that way. How I was raised doing is that kids don't speak, and parents, and we speak and they listen. And he's saying that's not the way it works. And it took me where I got to a point, guys, where I said to myself this, I am not going to lose my son. He was about 15, and I sensed that we were drifting in a different direction where I'm trying to be a father and he's trying to be a young man, and we're colliding with each other. And I said to myself one day, I was praying one day, I said, God, I will not lose my son. That was what I said, I would not lose my son. Because once they reach 18, 19, they're an adult. Once they're in university, you're not going to be able to reach him at that point. He's gone. And I said to myself, I have a few more years with him at home. And whatever it takes, I'm not going to lose my son. Because too often, our young boys, because as fathers, we're trying to compete. And as fathers, we are trying to instill certain principles, but we're doing it by force. And the more force, Dwayne, is the more I was pushing him away. And what I start doing, I start listening. He would come home from school, and I said to him, hey, D, let's talk. I said, go ahead. And I'll listen to him.
It's interesting you say that, listening. I don't have sons, so that's why I'm a little bit quiet about, as you talk about your son. I have two daughters, and they're adults now. And a couple weeks ago, I had a chance to go out to brunch with them. I say I had a chance because I had to schedule it. I had to ask them when are you available.
Yeah.
And I think I got a date 3 weeks down the road. So one of the things that we talked about though in sitting with them as adults is what are some things that were really important to them when they were growing up, and they don't talk about what I said, but what they talk about is what I provided. So, for example, I was present. I showed up at their volleyball games, at their at their school parent-teachers meetings or graduations. We went to Disney World. They remember all the times that you were present.
Yeah.
And I think what I take away from that is sometimes, you talked earlier about parents want to tell their kids what to do and listen to me, but may not model it, and they may not be present and listening. One of the things that my daughter said to me that I could do better was I could be a better listener.
Wow.
And so, that spoke deeply to me. And so a lot of times we're trying to figure out, how to be this perfect parent, but sometimes all the kids are looking for is your presence.
Yeah.
And that you're involved, breakfast, lunch, brunch. Let's go to Disney. Let's do this, and listen.
Wow.
Even when you're in the car driving somewhere. Today I drove for an hour with my daughter on the 407, and she had a lot to say, and I just listened.
Wow.
And I think that goes a long way.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree with that as well. I used to say that to my mom, having some talks. I grew up with a single parent. My mom raised me. And my mom worked day job cleaning and then a night job cleaning. And, falling asleep on the highway. She tried to come home at night.
Yeah.
And I remember being home alone from the age of 10 years old. Until the neighbors complained, essentially, there's a child at home by himself. And I remember growing up feeling abandoned and very isolated. And I remember saying to my mom, I appreciate and love you so much for the sacrifice. As a single mom, working all those late nights, I get it. You had to do what you had to do. But I remember saying at one point, Mom, you didn't have to do any of that. I just needed you to be there. You know what I mean? If you were there in the nighttime, I could have done with one less soccer practice. I would have done with one less hockey practice. Just you being there, even if you just sat down and watched a movie, would have made the world of a difference for me.
Being present.
And how I view myself
Wow.
as a man now, as an adult.
Yeah, I think we underestimate our presence. Even if we're not doing anything, just like you said, sitting watching the Raptors game.
Yeah.
Just your presence there is powerful.
There's a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
The person's beside you and not on their phone, but beside you and just interacting, even if it's just like a chuckle,
I think that's so important, that we learn. It's a skill we need to learn how to listen. Because how we're conditioned when we're growing up, that parents do the talking, children do the listening.
Yeah.
And it's really, we have to, in these changing times, knowing how much more information there is out there. Like sometimes I argue with my son over certain things, and he would say, "Oh, no, it's not bad," because he went and researched it on whatever. And now I'm competing.
They're quick for that. Sure.
I'm competing with Google, and I'm competing
AI,
with,
everything.
"No, you're wrong, Dad." So, but it's important just to listen, and sometimes that's hard. It's hard because we're conditioned to a certain way, and now that things are changing, and if we want to get through to our kids and get them to understand our children, and for that, we have to show empathy and listen to what they're saying to us.
But we were modeled differently because the reason why it's hard for us, Dwayne, is because we're going on an old model that how we were raised.
Yeah. Yeah, and that old model is no longer
not working.
in play.
It's not working today.
Over the last 30 years,
It's changed.
A lot of things have changed.
It's hard to listen. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, our parents, we have to give our parents grace.
Oh, yes.
They did the best they could.
The best they could with what they had.
With what they had.
Yes.
And I think, I say this to many men all the time, that, just like us, our kids will see the flaws in us too.
Yes.
And I'm sure we're not perfect,
No.
and our kids will tell us. But we do the best we can, and hopefully the best we can will be enough. And as we get smarter and become more aware of more information, we're in a position now to be better. I think our parents didn't have access to all the information that we have now. And because of that, I think they did their best with the information they had.
I think they did. Amazing.
Do we find it hard to listen to our kids because most times, we see based on experience the road they're going down, so we're trying to provide that advice to get them off that road because we can see the destination that they're going. So we don't want to listen to all the excuses because we made them too, right? Like sometimes I have a 16-year-old at home and sometimes he's telling me what he's doing and I want to disagree. I want to say, no, it's this way because I thought exactly how he thought. You know what I mean? And I took for granted exactly how he took it for granted. but not listening.
I remember my son, he wouldn't listen to me. There was some advice I was giving him on, he was even on his first vehicle. These young kids, he wanted to get special Lexus that was, it was an older Lexus. He bought it. It was not, he had to put a lot of money into it, but it was, it has this special engine. And I said, car's not a good investment, when you're wasting your money doing that. And he wouldn't listen. He said, no, this car's going to be worth stuff once I fix it up, whatever. And then the car eventually just, it was no good. And sometimes you have to let them.
Yeah.
You have to let them learn, because this is how we learn sometimes. We made mistakes. And those mistakes that we made us, we learned from those mistakes and became better.
Yes.
And if you don't allow your children to sometimes fall, right? If we try to coddle them all the way, they'll never really become strong men.
Guys, thank you so much for joining. We are out of time. I wish we have so much time because we have so much to discuss. But this conversation will continue on our next show. Thanks for joining to Level Up. Have yourself a wonderful evening. God bless you all. Stay blessed. Stay leveling up. God bless you. Phyllis.